Hi, I'm Mayce.
And I'm Missy.
We're best friends
and business partners. And each week, we're going to bring you a quote that inspires us, and we're going to talk about it.
Join us as we break down our favorite impactful messages for leadership and share how you can apply them to lead with confidence and purpose.
Get ready for a fun and authentic journey into leadership, life, and everything in between.
Well, hey, bestie.
Hey, bestie. Guess what day it is?
It's podcast day, the best day of the week, if you ask me.
Absolutely. I have been looking forward to this one all week. And today's even more special because we're hanging out with someone who's been making a huge impact behind the scenes in his community for years.
Yes, he is such a great guy. I've known him for years. You've met him. We absolutely adore his wife, Amy. She is one of our favorite people.
She is. She came, Macy, to our retreat that we hosted down in Fort Lauderdale. That's the first time I got to meet Amy, fell in love with her within the first 3 minutes of meeting her. Yeah. And speaking of that retreat, it was fun, but been there, done that. Yes?
Yeah, we're not doing another one of those. We'll show up, but we are not planning one.
That's right.
That's for sure. All right. So welcome, Mr. Thornton. How are you today?
I'm just ducky. Thanks for asking.
Yes, welcome. We are looking so forward to chatting with you today.
Yes, we are. So, Bob, before we share this week's quote, we want to let our listeners know more about you. Obviously, we mentioned your wife, Amy, who we both love. We know that you're the co-owner of O'Donnell Impact Windows and Storm Protection. You are a veteran, so thank you for your service.
Yes.
And as I shared in the intro, you've made a lot of impact here in Martin County. You do a lot of mentoring. However, I think the favorite part of your bio was when you wrote, "You still marvel at how a misguided troublemaker from Connecticut could truly find happiness helping others and with being so involved in your community." So without further ado, Bob Thornton, welcome. Let us know, or let our listeners know, what else they should know about you.
Well, first of all, you should know that Amy wrote that. So
I love it.
Full and fair disclosure.
Okay, all right.
Amy wrote that, but yes, I'm from Connecticut originally, and I came down here in 2005. I've had a very Forrest Gump life. When Amy and I, 20-something years ago, first started dating, and we would be going to a party, she would say, "If someone tells a story, please don't tell a story." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because it sounds fake, because you've done so much." So I've had this incredible Forrest Gump life. I've had numerous careers, and but in reality, the whole thing is that I just go out and try to help people.
Yeah, so good. And each week, Bob, we try to use a quote that will fit our guest, right? So you feel comfortable about speaking about it. And all of our quotes are always related to leadership in some way. And I was digging around on the World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web.
Yeah, the www.
I haven't heard that in a hot minute.
I know, I'm aging myself, but I just thought it was fun. And I actually came across an interview that you did with Treasure Coast Top 100. Now, I don't know how long ago it was, but I really liked your perspective and what you talked about. And it's not something that we have really gotten into yet on the podcast. So here's the quote that we chose for you. "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And that is according to Mark Twain."
I love that quote. It's a great one.
It is. I'm really excited. So, Bob, when you hear this quote, tell Missy and I and our listeners what comes to mind for you.
I'm going to go back to an opportunity that I had to speak at a graduation.
Okay.
And I didn't know anything about the school. I didn't know what their purpose was. I didn't look it up. Typically, I just go and God or the universe or aliens behind the moon or whatever you want to call it just gives me a story every time.
Sure.
And I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and it all came to me. And I went into work and I had Chantel, who was my assistant at the time, incredibly artistic. And I brought in 2 canvases and I had her paint a picture for me. And I brought it up to the school. And I told a story about how a triathlon works. And I said, who knows what a triathlon is? And they all said, it's swimming, biking, running. And I said, exactly. What do you think the most dangerous part of a triathlon is? And someone said swimming. I said, exactly, because the triathlon that I was in, there were 700 of us hit the water at the same time. And I am a very gifted cyclist. I am a very stone swimmer. I sink. So when the race started and we all took off, I'm competitive and I was out in front and the whole wave of people crashed over me. And it was like being under the ice and I couldn't get back up to get a breath. And I went through the whole thing and I told the story about how all of a sudden one person came around the top buoy and started swimming into shore and pulling away, and it wasn't me. And everybody was, the audience was kind of sad. And I said, no, I barely got across the finish line and made up for it in my run and my cycle. But the biggest event I was ever in, I'm just going to round it off. There was about 4 million participants.
Wow.
And there was only first place. There was no second, third, fourth. Usually the top 10 finishers are going to get some kind of trophy. And when that starter fired the pistol, I hit the water and I swam and I clawed and I dug. And all of a sudden somebody came around that top buoy and started distancing, and it was me.
Wow.
And I started stretching out in front of everyone, and I was the first one across the finish line. And I said,
from 4 million people?
I've done a lot of events in my life. I've had just this crazy Forrest Gump life, like I said. And one of the things that happens in those events is there's photographers. So when I go by, no matter how bad I feel, no matter if I'm sweating and my tongue's hanging out, I make sure I buff up and I smile and I look good for that picture. And maybe you guys have been there and done that. And I went back to the photographer because I was going to the school and I wanted to share with them how I looked going across that finish line.
Right.
And I was able to actually get a picture of me in that race. And there it is.
Oh my gosh.
So that quote, this is the long way around, Maisie. I never take the short way. But that quote, we all fought to be here.
Right.
There's between 2 and 6 million swimmers, and you won. You each won your race, and you fought to get here. The problem is when we get here, we don't remember that we fought to get here. So we hear people say things like, I didn't ask to be here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't choose to be here. And I say, you know what? That makes you a liar because you did. You just forgot. And we have this incredible brain. And yes, Amy dug these pictures out for me last night. We have this incredible brain, but this is how it comes to Earth.
Oh, it's not showing. You'll have to send a picture over to
there.
Oh, there's nothing there.
There.
I thought it was because you had a blurred background.
No. We come with this incredible gift.
Sure.
The best computer ever built, but it has no program. And all that we can do, before we can even speak, all we can do is listen. And people start writing a program in our brain. Oh, she's our shy one. He's our lazy one.
Yes.
He's our chubby one.
Wow.
She's clumsy. So by the time we can speak, and you go to nursery school or kindergarten or whatever, and you say, "Hey, we'd like you to get up and do the Pledge of Allegiance." That thought goes up into that incredible computer, and it runs through all that memory tape. And if there's more negative than positive, what comes out of your mouth? Oh no, I'm too shy. Right?
Yeah.
And
sure.
you hang another memory strip in there that you're too shy to speak in public. So the program that most people run is not the program that they would choose to put in their head.
Wow.
Once
Yeah.
so that second part of that quote, once we realize that it's not our program, we can rewrite it.
Mm.
Our brain is the most incredible yet simplest thing to program.
It takes time though, don't you think? I mean,
and
100%.
intentionality.
Yeah.
You can never get rid of all the negative that was hung in your brain, but you can overwhelm it. So once you rewrite, and this is something I do. I've had this unbelievable blessing of mentoring people my whole life, all ages. And I have them write their I am. I am. I rewrite I am at least once a year. And I read it out, and I can tell you I'm healthy, wealthy, sober, and successful. I rise to make a difference. I am a world-class Hall of Fame inspirational speaker, writer, coach, and mentor. I have a whole thing that
It's so good.
And the reason that I do it is because everyone else is going to try to write who you are. They're going to tell you, oh, Maisie, you're so good. You're so gifted. And you start listening to that. And when you start reading your own headlines, which everything that I share with you, I've already made the mistakes of doing.
Yeah.
When you start reading your whole own headlines, that's when you start to go down the hill.
You know, Missy, a couple of weeks ago, we had Christian Martinez on our podcast.
Yes.
And he spoke very similar to that, like
yes,
how he
did.
Gets out of bed every morning.
Words have power.
You know, he does his affirmations. And I remember when the boys were little and we would drive to school, I would make them say their affirmations.
Yes.
Every morning.
It's a proven fact that words have power, that thoughts are things.
Yeah.
And when you tap into that, you tap into something that gives you, I think, a superpower.
Yeah. You know, I do think that sometimes people think, Bob, like they can just sit around and wait for their purpose to show up, but you have to go and find it, don't you? Like, what do you guys think? Like, don't you have to go find it? It's that you can't just sit back and expect that your purpose or your why is just going to come from nowhere, especially, Bob, with what you were just saying about all the negative thoughts and the voices, the outside influences. What do you guys think, Miss Bob? What do you think about going out and finding your purpose or waiting for it just to show up?
For me, there's 8.2 billion people in the world, but there's very few human beings. And the difference when we're babies, and this is my own, everything is my opinion. Don't be mad at these ladies, but babies are the most selfish creature on the planet. They can't communicate. All they can do is cry. They want to be fed. They want to be burped. They want to be changed. They want to be rocked. They want to be held. And if they don't get their way, what do? They cry.
Right.
Most people on the planet never evolve from being a baby. They just, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And when you start to become a human being, it's an awakening process. But the people are so hungry for it when you share it. You know, the fact that God has given me all of these gifts, it shows how desperate he is. Because if he gave anyone else all these gifts, there would be world peace, and there would be no hunger, and there would be flying cars and everything. So I've done a crappy job so
you
far.
Have not.
No.
But no, it's so he's writing straight with broken sticks, right? He's using us. But it's up to us to get up. You know, the early bird catches the worm, but God doesn't throw the worms into the nest. They got to get up and get at it.
That's good, yeah.
I went out into racetrack this morning, and there's a line, and I'm trying to get my coffee and get right back out the door. And this landscaper came in, and the language was a little bit of a struggle for him, but he came in because he had forgot to grab his 2 bags of ice to put into his cooler for the day. And, you know, going to be whatever degrees, it's hot and it's all of that. And he went up to the counter and he tried to explain that he forgot to take his ice and he drove away. And it became this major investigation with 2 clerks and the manager, and they're grilling him. And I'm just standing there, and took $10 out of my money clip and I said, here, charge me for 2 bags of ice. Go grab your ice and get on the road. I didn't, and everybody else was like, oh, why didn't we think of that? You know?
Right.
So it's not because I'm so great. It's just, I have a keen eye for the obvious. And when we start to step forward, it's amazing the rest of the world steps forward with us.
Agreed.
When we see
so good.
something wrong and we speak it, they step forward with us. And if they don't, what's the difference?
Right.
Macy, that reminds me of the story you told once that where you were like taking your cart back in like a shopping center parking lot. Do you remember that? And like these other people weren't. And then when you did, they like turned and followed suit. When we do the right thing, which is taking action, and leaders take action before others hesitate, people will often follow. And so I think that's a real everyday world scenario. I just remember so vividly you sharing that story years ago. Yeah. Macy, when you were talking about, do we have to go out and find our purpose? I think that often our purpose is layered in all the experiences of our life and how we respond to them. But I think you have to take action on living into your purpose.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's inside of you, right? I think, Bob was talking before, like God does give us gifts and talents and skills that maybe the next person doesn't have, right? We're all so unique, but I don't think that you can sit on them. Like you have to, like you just said, if God has given you this, it's because he believes in you. He believes that you could do it. And it is really our responsibility to walk in that purpose, to walk in that passion. Because I've said this before, Missy, I know you've said it, Bob, you've probably said it as well, is when we walk in our purpose, whatever that is, like if Missy and I, if our purpose is to have this podcast has nothing to do with Missy and I. Nothing.
Right.
It has to do with all the people that we hope this podcast helps, right? That's why we bring on different guests each week. So it's a matter of taking the responsibility and being obedient, I believe, to the gifts and talents that you have, but you have to do something with them because you can't just sit around and expect that things are going to happen.
Yeah. And as a woman of faith, I will just say that I 100% believe that if you woke up with a breath this morning, you were born with a purpose that was determined when you were in your mom's womb. Before you even took your first breath of life, there was purpose for why you're here.
Yes.
But we've got to find it.
Yeah. Missy, or Bob, either one of you, how do you think people could find their purpose? Like if they're not really sure, like Miss, what would you say? Like how can someone, if they're struggling with finding their purpose, what might you say to them to like help them? Hey, bestie. We just got some amazing feedback from a client we recently worked with. Their team's morale and engagement skyrocketed after our training.
I love hearing that. Companies are seeing higher retention, lower turnover, and even increased revenue and productivity because leaders are investing in their teams.
And communication and team efficiency are improving, which we know leads to better customer service and huge cost savings. If you want these results, check out our website, Mpactful Messages, to learn how we can help you.
And for more leadership tips and strategies, sign up for our newsletter, mmleadershipnews.com. Well, I think what you have to do to find your purpose is spend a lot of intentional time thinking about the things that have happened in your life, how you've responded to them, and how you can use that to help others. Right? Yeah. I think your purpose really comes down to what you do for the world. And to find that, you've got to know what you're good at. You've got to know what you're passionate about. And then you've got to take action toward those things. I think it's a journey to find your purpose. What do you think, Bob?
I think that action speaks louder than words.
Absolutely.
And no matter what you give, you get so much more back.
Yeah.
And the only way you find your purpose is to go out there and make an effort. And shopping carts, I use that at least twice a week. Every time I go through the parking lot, I grab somebody's shopping cart. I say, I'll take that back. I never use a shopping cart. I go to the grocery store way too many times. It's actually embarrassing. But I bring their shopping cart back. And this, you're right. People see and they're like, oh, I'm going to do that too. And it's just such a small little thing. And you're 100% right. With your life experience, no one has the gifts that you have been given, and no one has overcome what you have overcome. Exactly. I wrote 100 years ago, the garment of faith is tailored to each individual.
Yes, I love that.
My faith, my jacket of faith will not fit you. And your jacket of faith will not fit me, because it comes from what I've lived through and what I've gone through. So if you can take what you've gone through and reach out to your community, it's not, everyone is so focused on who's in the White House, who's in Russia, who's over here, who's doing this, who's doing that. And it's so great to be able to focus on things we have no control over, because then we're not responsible.
Yeah.
Then,
you know what?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
We don't have to do anything. We can just rage against the machine. And when we wake up and realize that God has given me this little slice of life, and I can't control what happens in the White House.
Right.
And I can't control what happens in Tallahassee. And I can't control what Amy's going to do today. All I can control is the slice that God gave me. And when I bring it down to that, and I say, what can I do to make a difference in my world today?
Yeah.
And when I reach out and I touch another human through action or through talk or through a smile or holding a door, they're going to reach out possibly, and they're going to touch another human. And before you know it, we're all working in our little world to the greater good. And life is just, it's such a better place. And it's amazing how contagious it is. People want to make a difference.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. And you guys know I'm like the logical one, right? So I'm thinking like, what is something that someone can literally do to find their purpose? And I think that they literally could ask themselves why. Like, why do I like this thing? Or why don't I like this thing? Or, why am I doing what I'm doing? And why aren't I doing what I want to do? But I think a lot of understanding your why is literally asking the question, why? Right? Like,
that's good.
Why?
Yeah.
So,
ours was touchy-feely. Yours is logical.
Hey, listen,
and practical.
That's who we are.
That's who we
are, right?
It is. But, I think it is really good, because not enough of us are asking the question, why am I here? What role do I serve in this world? Too many people are just going through the motions and just kind of getting by day to day, not thinking about that purpose and what they can do to make each day a little bit better. So, all right, Bob, here's a question. You run a business that's already a full-time commitment, but you've chosen to also invest in mentoring youth. What pulled you toward that?
That's really, actually, it's an easy one for me. I have the opportunity to I get to talk a lot. As you can tell, I talk a lot, but I get to speak all over. And I always think when I get in front of young people, I'm speaking to me. I was that kid who wanted to hear my story, to know that there was hope.
Oh, I love that.
So if we can catch them early enough, we can make such a difference, and they can make such a difference.
Yeah.
I had people that mentored me when I was young, and as a result, I have honestly mentored thousands of people in businesses just every single day since I was 17 years old. And believe me, before I was 17 years old, I was not the kid that you wanted to have at your house.
We weren't inviting inviting Bob over for dinner because his stories might have been a little bit colorful, but we would invite Bob over for dinner. Now, I have a question, Bob, to kind of piggyback on that. If you could go back and ask or give your younger self just one piece of advice about leadership, about purpose, what would you tell your younger self? What would that advice be?
You can make a difference.
Mm.
It's not in the giant, we don't have to build the Great Wall of China. It's putting the first brick down. Someone 7,000 years before it was done put the first brick down. Yeah. And walking through the mall, I saw this little old lady, and she was all gussied up. She had her nice dress on and her hair and her makeup and everything. And she was standing in the middle of the mall. And as I walked by, I touched her elbow and I said, "You look beautiful today." And she started crying.
She needed it at that exact moment.
I said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." And she said, "No, since my husband died, I feel like I'm invisible."
Oh my gosh.
That one touch, right? Never saw her again. That one touch
changed her life.
You can make a difference. And those things that you think, when you become brave enough to let them out, you'll get more and more and more of them.
Yes.
Yeah. I recently attended an event, and there was a fashion show, and it was like kind of a mother-daughter or grandmother-daughter fashion show. And I'm friends with the grandmother, and we were talking, and she said, "Oh yeah, my granddaughter, she has this disease where she's young. I think she's like 12, and she's a little bit heavier for her age. Like, she's not one of these, stick thin girls, and she doesn't have much confidence." I'm like, oh my God, she was adorable. Well, I happened to see them at a restaurant, and I went up to the granddaughter. I was like, in that fashion show, you were just amazing. And you could just see the sparkle in her eye. Now, listen, Missy and I always say, if you're going to say something, you have to be authentic, right? Like it has to be a real thing.
Has to be true.
And there was no reason this young little girl, 12 years old, should have felt bad about herself, but I could totally see her like perk up. And I watched her, and like at dinner, the rest of the time she was with her family, she just had a different sense.
Sure.
About her. And I think, Bob, I love what you're saying. It's the little things. It's putting the shopping cart back. It's paying for someone's ice at racetrack. It's saying someone looks beautiful when they could feel like today was the worst day that they've ever looked. And people want to be seen, right? And when you can do those little things, then that is your purpose. I think all of our purpose, right, is to make people feel better.
It for sure is. And it is those little things that compound over time. I think even since we're talking about finding your purpose, it's those little things that you do that is making a difference that begins that journey of finding your why, right? Yeah. I knew very early on I was an encourager, and that I loved speaking life into people. And it is addictive. And I think, Mayce, that's one of the reasons why I've always, and we've said it together, but I've always been like, I can't say something that's not true. Like, it has to be authentic, because I love, my grandmother called it giving people their roses, right? And so I will also, Bob, stop a stranger and say, "You're glowing," or "You're beautiful," or "Let me get that for you." I love doing those little things. Mayce, we love to do random acts of kindness, even if it's buying a clerk a candy bar who's checking us out. But those little bitty steps that you find that light your soul on fire, those are moving you towards your purpose.
Yeah. But let me ask you this. Do you think there's a difference between success and purpose?
No, that's good. You can be successful and never discover your purpose. There have been plenty of successful people on their deathbed who have said, "Oh, to reach the point of death only to realize that I never lived." And
Yes.
they have a huge bank account and they have nothing else. If you
Yes.
find your purpose, you cannot help but become successful.
Oh, that's so good. You know, our mentor, John Maxwell, talks about success and significance. And he says that once you've tasted significance, success is never going to satisfy you.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing this a lot with the people that we train that are in that second half of their life, right? They have the paychecks, they've done the trips, they have the cars, they're putting their kids through college. And so now they're really starting to say, but what have I done with my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we look at people like you mentioned, Missy, people that we train, and Bob, you probably see this a lot too with the younger group that you mentor, right? Being popular is important, or the clothes they wear are important, the phone, the shoes, right? But kind of as we wrap up for today, can you share maybe just a quick story of someone that you mentored and that you played a significant role in helping them find their why, helping them find their purpose?
Oh, I'm snuggling in for this one.
Wow. I have so many blessings, so many success stories of people that I've had an opportunity to share with. And I actually, this was a teacher of mine in 8th grade. And I'm using his name because I asked, because everyone that I work with, it's just between the two of us.
Sure.
And I spoke with Carl Zopati last night. He was my football coach and my gym teacher in 8th grade. And we went on to become great friends through life. And we had a men's group. And if you're not in a group, I strongly suggest you find a group of like-minded individuals. We are torchbearers. You ladies are torchbearers. We carry a torch of faith, and others light their torch off of ours. When you put two together, it burns brighter. When you both walk away, you see clearer. But if you're constantly sharing your fire and not replenishing, you're going to burn down. So I've always had a group. So Carl was part of my group, and we had lost touch as I grew up and got older. And he came in, and I would just share my little stories of my crazy life that God gives me every day. And he said, "Oh, I wish I could do what you do. I could never speak about my faith. I could never share. And I just wish I was like you." And I said, "Carl, just find something you're comfortable with. You're an incredible writer." He loved to send a card. And I said, "Start writing cards to people when you feel motivated and you can't talk." And years ago, Carl started to write cards. And now Carl never shuts up. He's out there. He's making a huge difference. He's in all kinds of groups. And he always tries to give me credit. And I go, "Oh, no, this is all on you. I can't make anyone do anything. I can just share with you the ways I've gone that haven't worked." And
so good. So
it's
good.
just it's so cool. And I won't say how old he is now. I'm 150, so he's 175. But
I love it.
What an incredible human being and an incredible difference he's made.
That's so incredible. Good. Well, speaking of groups, it's ironic, but Mayce and I actually have a group. I don't think we've ever mentioned it on the podcast.
No, I don't think so.
But we have a group of people who want to grow in their purpose, who want to lead, who want to be surrounded by others who want to make a difference in this world. And so if anybody wants to join it, and we'll put it in the show notes too, Mayce, don't let me forget, but it's www.inspired people inspire people. And so if you need a group like Bob was talking about, come join us. It's a Facebook group. We put lots of nuggets in there to inspire you and to help you become the best person, the best leader on this world that you can be. So
yeah, there's there's that World Wide Web again, www.inspiredpeople.com. Okay, so listeners, if you take away only one thing from today's episode, let it be this: your purpose It's important.
Mm.
Knowing your purpose gives direction to your life. Without it, you might work hard, you might chase goals, you might stay busy, but you'll never feel fulfilled. When you know your purpose, every decision, every relationship, every challenge fits into a bigger story. It's the difference between wandering and building something that lasts.
Oh, that's right, Macy. And the moment that you find it, your life shifts, right? Like everything gets clearer.
Yes.
You stop chasing things that don't matter and you start building a life that does. So, Bob, thank you so much for sharing your heart and your leadership journey with us today. But before we go, we always like to ask our guests this question. If our listeners want to stay connected with you, how can they find you? And we'll also add it to the show notes.
Well, you can find me at O'Donnell Impact Windows. They're used to getting calls from very, very different people, looking for a different kind of a window, a clearer view.
I love that.
So that's one way you can get a hold of me. Don't make fun of me, but I'll date myself with the www. I'm Robert J. Thornton, Thornton at hotmail.com. Possibly the last Hotmail account in the country.
No, I have a Hotmail account too.
Hysterical.
And I have a quote of the day that I blind CC out. I've done it for over 35 years. And you can get on the quote of the day. Sometimes I write them and say author unknown. So now you know a little secret about it. And I put a picture, but it's just to, we are all torchbearers. I love that you guys have a group. And folks, if you're listening, it's like we all come in. When you go to a group, we all put our torches down into a fire barrel. And when we leave, they're all burning brighter. We can not only see our way, but we can help others find theirs.
So good.
So good.
Ladies, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Wait, before you go though, Bob, we know that you love quotes because I've gotten your text messages before. What is your favorite? You could only choose one. What is your favorite leadership quote?
I'm not stealing this from Simon Sinek.
You can steal it from whoever you want.
He stole it from Nietzsche originally, but it's those that have why can endure anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's led many people. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. If you really want to read a book, he went through Auschwitz and lived because his purpose was to help one other prisoner every day.
Wow.
So once you know your why, you can endure anyhow. You can
that's
make it.
really good. And
really
so perfect
good
for today's
really great
episode.
So thanks again for joining us today. But we
Yes,
have to
Bob,
ask our
thank you.
listeners, do you have a favorite leadership quote? Let us know that and we may spotlight it on a future episode.
That's right. We'll be back next week with another quote and more leadership insights. And Miss, you know what we're going to do?
We're going to talk about it.
Bye, Bob. Thank you so much. Bye, bestie.
Bye, bestie. We want to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please show us some love by clicking the 3 dots to download the podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast app and talk about it with other leaders to help them find the show from any of the major podcast apps. We'd love for you to follow us on social media too. Mpactful with an M _messages on Instagram and Mpactful Messages on LinkedIn.